So, Joe, we're almost here. We are, as of recording, 1 week away from opening day between, two games, but between the New York Yankees and the Washington Nationals to kick off the resumption of the four major sports in the United States. How good of a feeling is it that we see the finish line, or the starting line, depending on who you ask?
It's like watching a New York Rangers hockey game, or any hockey game where you have a two-goal lead and you're getting towards the middle of the third period and you're like, ooh, we should win this. We're up by 2 goals. And then all of a sudden it's like, they score a goal because it's sort of like, more COVID cases are popping up and you're getting like a little frantic and panicked and you're like, it's right there. And then they pull the goalie and you're like ready. They're starting the games and I don't know if the other team's going to score now and tie this up or win it in overtime, and we're not going to have our baseball season or any sports because, we'll get to it a bit more later, but now apparently 72 NFL players have tested positive for the coronavirus, a bunch more for basketball and everything else, and it's a lot to take into it. I don't know if we're going to have baseball. I hope we do. It's going to be a bit of a disappointing season. I think that it's going to be a 60-game sprint, but maybe it'll make it more interesting. Who knows?
Yeah, at least the good thing is players are that the initial intake was when baseball started summer training was a lot of players were not a lot, but a lot of players per team were seeming to get the or had the virus. That the Phillies were hit hard. The Nationals had several players that opt out. Freddie Freeman was notably had a bad case of the virus, but there since that initial intake, it's been about, I believe it was said, a 0.2% positive rate after camps opened from that initial intake to new virus cases, and players are coming back. That some of the first ones, like Salvador Perez, Yoan Moncada, have returned to camp. As I said, Freddie Freeman, who had a bad case, DJ LeMahieu, while they're not expected to be ready for opening day, are on track at some point at the end, before the camps close, to partake in activities and be cleared, so that hopefully in the first week we'll see them come back out. What isn't set in stone right now is where that first game is going to be played. As I said, the first game for Major League Baseball is New York Yankees at Washington Nationals. However, the city of Washington, D.C. has refused to give an exemption to the to baseball from its 2-week quarantine from certain states that they have said you have to quarantine from. So they're exploring other alternatives. Nearby Fredericksburg, Virginia has their single A franchise, but the likeliest option is, as you said, with the virus anything can change, is to go down to Florida, West Palm Beach, their spring training grounds. Although they said everything's fluid, and as I look now on Twitter, now they're saying that Fredericksburg is in the front runner. So who knows?
But Florida, have they not watched the news?
Well, it's the thing of it's close to two of the franchises that are down there, so it cuts down on travel time. But at the same time, Fredericksburg a lot closer to where their training is and to the northern team. So we'll see what they say. Other news: the Blue Jays, while they have not gotten the full blessing of Canada to play games in Toronto and be exempt from Canada's mandatory 2-week quarantine, the city of Toronto and the province of Ottawa have given that blessing. So they are expected to have a decision at the federal level come within the next few days. They've said that Buffalo or their spring training facility in Florida would be their alternate sites. So one that's definitely a no-go for their city, and another that is a potential. The good thing for the Blue Jays is, unlike the Nationals, who open up their first game and uh, in Washington. The Blue Jays don't come home for their first game until July 29th against those Nationals. So they have a little bit of time to sort this out.
Well, if Canada allows for the Blue Jays to play there and not have to quarantine and whatnot, and DC does not, could the Nationals go back to Montreal?
I doubt it. No one really wants to play in Olympic Stadium at the moment. They need a new stadium if they want to have a team there.
Yeah, but no fans, so it doesn't really matter.
True, but it's interesting seeing how baseball is really putting its foot out there. Unlike basketball and hockey, they're not doing a quarantine situation, even though they were the first sport to even float the idea of a bubble. That they're going at their home parks and they're going to try for that 60-game sprint. Who knows what's going to happen, and who knows if we'll even be able to have the whole sprint.
No.
As of yesterday, that 60,000 cases in the United States, 30,000 of them were in California, Florida, and Texas combined, which account for 9 of the 30 major league franchises. So,
one of the things that's kind of interesting, and you wouldn't think of it, I had noticed a little bit back in the news the other week. Were you familiar with the Dodgers hitters having trouble hitting at the park?
I did see that. It related to the batter's eye. Correct?
Yeah, that was sort of a thing that's like you expect that thing to be there. Like I know when like A-Rod was trying to hit his like 500, 600, whatever it was, the home run where like he didn't get from 99 to whatever the 100 was, and he had gone like weeks without it. You see like all these cameras flashing. It's like that's gotta be distracting. So like I'm aware of that stuff, but like at the same time, like you just don't think it's like, oh yeah, that's completely different.
Yeah, well, the reason that this suddenly became a problem was of recent stadium renovations in the off season. That there were changes to the pavilion, new center field plaza pavilion, right behind where there used to be a black batter's eye, but which no longer was. And early in summer training, the players realized, hey, this is a problem. The light's reflecting off it. It's hard to see the white ball, so they did the best option and used that tarp that they never use because it hardly ever rains in Dodger Stadium.
Yeah.
I think maybe they've had like 3 total rainouts or some ridiculous low number. I'm spitballing off the top of my head, but point is, temporary fix is a tarp on the batter's eye. I imagine in the off season they'll have a permanent fix.
Yeah.
To
so I thought that was kind of like the fun, interesting story of the last week or so.
Yeah. What hasn't been fun is over in football where the now former Redskins are very much beleaguered.
Yeah, if you actually look on ESPN, going through like all the teams, you see like Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins, Dallas Cowboys, New York Giants, Philadelphia Eagles, Washington, and then it's just like a blank icon.
Yeah. So the Redskins have officially, as of this past Monday, dropped the Redskins name amid intense pressure from FedEx and other sponsors, which I didn't realize. FedEx is not only a sponsor, they also have an ownership stake, a minority ownership stake, but a significant enough minority stake that they could wrangle some of the other minority franchises with them.
Now, if only Nike gets its act together in China better.
Yeah, but so we talked about last week some names, Red Tails, other ones like Monuments, Veterans, Red Wolves, Warriors, and there's an interesting story that a realtor in the DC area has actually trademarked a lot of those common names.
Yeah, just as it leaked out of those being the possible names, he went and see, I'm like torn because like part of me is like, oh, that's a smart move because you capitalize on that and then you make some good money if you can do anything and if you're not that greedy. But at the same time, it's sort of like, dude, like, come on, don't be a jerk. Um,
Well,
so,
the person has said, the guy's name is Philip Martin McCauley. Uh, he said that he is a longtime fan of the team, and while he's trademarked all these names, the reason he did it is to help them in the selection, to basically, I guess, collaborate with them, and he's offered to them the names free in writing back at the beginning of July. Although he has said he has not been contacted by the NFL or the Washington franchise.
yeah, I think
a
that's
CNN
just
report.
like a icing on the cake cover story, trying to sweeten it up. He's if he's really like that big of a fan, he wouldn't have done it. Or if he was progressive enough, I don't know. It doesn't seem right. Doesn't sit right on me. I think he's trying to. If anything, he'll. The way it's sounding to me is he's trying to filter out the name that he wants.
Yeah.
So if he's not a fan of the Red Tails and he wants the Warriors instead, which people were a little opposed to.
I hope not. That's basic. That's like a high school football name.
Yeah.
It's not a pro name.
So is the Vegas Golden Knights.
That's a little better.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think he's trying to like funnel out the name that he wants if he's trying to explain it that way of why he's doing it, which honestly isn't really a good motive.
No, although there's also question uh, of if he can actually get the trademark on it, because there's I've heard some conflicting information on whether this would actually prevent them from using the name, i.e., you could have a Washington Warriors football team, but then you could also have a Washington Warriors bakery. There's been some conflicting reports on that the intent of the business also matters, but I'm not entirely sure. I would say in good faith to get negotiated, although I would not want to go with this guy's first choice. You want to know what his first choice is for the franchise?
What?
The Pandas. He wants the Washington Pandas.
Well, you could have the Red Pandas.
Yeah, the Red Pandas. Hey,
Yeah.
that fits in with all this China talk, doesn't it? Right?
Kind of does.
Yeah.
Mm.
But
Well, I'm a little biased. If you've ever seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, the sequel series, Legend of Korra, they had the Red Panda, Pabu. And I love Pabu.
Yeah, and before we move on to the other story involving Washington, the other three Native American franchises, Cleveland has already said that they're reviewing their name, but nothing has been said since that initial report a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
The Braves have put out a memo saying that they will not change their name, although they are reviewing the use of the tomahawk chop, which got into popularity in the 90s thanks to Deion Sanders.
Now, one of the things, though, with the Braves, I don't know if I mentioned it when we were doing the possible name changes. I think I might have forgotten to say it. But when the Braves, I think, were getting their name, I think it was the Braves, the guy who created it, it was sort of like the nickname of his company, and they were very... not very good company. They caused like lots of trouble in the New York area. So that sort of got like a bad sort of stain, I guess, on the legacy of the name, from the history of it. So maybe they want to change it for that reason.
Yeah, but at the moment they've said there is no plans to change it. Similarly, the Blackhawks and the Chiefs have no intentions of changing their names. The Blackhawks say that it was initially for the 86th Infantry Division during World War II, and now contend that it honors an actual Native American of Illinois' Sac and Fox Nation. Although I would say that their logo could use some updating.
The logo can use updating. It's not the worst thing,
but it hasn't changed in the last 60 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not as cartoonish as Chief Wahoo.
No, but it's somewhere. It's sort of like a weird in between between Chief Wahoo and what the Redskins have. And
Yeah.
The Redskins did have what looked like an actual Native American.
Yeah.
Chief Wahoo is basically what
Bugs Bunny early cartoon.
Yeah, Bugs Bunny cartoon, and the Blackhawks is somewhere in between where you can see those stylized lines, but it's not. But it's more realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, we'll see. The public pressure can change anything unless someone says no. I'm not standing. I'm not going to stand for changing just because you guys say so. We'll see. What is a little more concerning is just today, Thursday, a report came out from the Washington Post that 15 former female employees of the Redskins said that they were sexually harassed while working for the organization. According to the Post, they asked the Redskins for comment. Washington, this is going to take a little getting used to.
Mm-hmm.
Saying Washington, but neither the team nor owner Dan Snyder have been inclined to talk about the issue and have declined several requests to talk about the issue. But none of the 15 women accused Snyder or the former team president Bruce Allen of inappropriate behavior. However, the women believe that they must have known that these behaviors were happening. And this kind of, I forget who it was, but a few days ago, didn't we hear a story of a ex-Redskins player hinting that there was something going on with the franchise?
I'm not too aware. I've been sort of panicked up these last couple of days with COVID, so
COVID.
Yeah, I got a negative test, so I've been sort of I'm fine now, but I'm just sort of like I was like a little paranoid this past week.
Yeah,
so it was a little out of the news.
Yeah.
For stuff like that, but anyway, but yeah, there's a hint.
Here it is. It was former player Josh Norman.
Oh, okay.
Who did that? I'm pulling up the thing right now. But I remember I saw this like a few days ago, and I'm like, I wonder what it was, and then now we know. Here it is. 32-year-old Pro Bowler. I tweeted on the other day that actually early in the night. Quote, I will say this, what goes around comes around, what's done in the dark will surely come to the light. God seems to always have a way of reposition his people at the right time and reveal truths without saying a single word. This was at 12:02 a.m., just after midnight, and this news broke, when did this break? Like mid-afternoon, something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess that he knew this was going to come. Out. But it's just
give that guy a reporting.
Yeah, give that guy an insider.
Adam Schefter, move over.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of that, it's I think it's Adrian.
Oh yeah, Waj.
Yeah.
If that's what you're talking about.
That was a crazy breaking story that happened the other day.
Yeah.
What was that? He was talking.
I got it. So, let's see. Yeah. So, Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri has been one of the more prominent up and coming Republican senators in the chamber, and he's been very critical about the the NBA's stance on China. For those who don't know,
China's bad.
Yeah. About a year ago, there was the ball incident in China when they were detained, and then had to issue an apology.
Yep.
And there's also been recent thing with all the social justice. There've been report that have been going out in all the jerseys you could customize. There've been reports that you can't put "Free Hong Kong" on a jersey, although you can twist the saying. You can make "Save Hong Kong." But anyway, Josh Hawley wrote in a letter to Adam Silver, commissioner of the NBA, that criticizing the use of pre-approved social justice slogans while censoring support for law enforcement and criticism of the Chinese Communist Party. Quote, that the league's free expression appears to stop at the edge of your corporate sponsors' sensibilities. And there was a simple 2-word response from Waj.
You're right?
It starts with an F and ends with a U.
I was going to say fire truck.
They're close. Close enough. But
fire truck you.
Yeah. But obviously Josh Hawley did not like that and put it on his Twitter. Don't criticize hashtag China or express support for law enforcement to ESPN. It makes them real mad. And it had a screenshot of the response. And notably, the Waj did not even censor his response. It was the full 4 letters.
Yeah,
7
right.
letters.
So let me break this down on, I guess, some of the ethics of this. Yes, China has done terrible, horrible things. I mean, what country really hasn't? But China's just like right out there.
Yeah, not getting too much into
not to
sports politics,
dig too deep. Yeah,
between Hong Kong and the Uyghur Muslims, they don't have a good record at the moment.
Yeah, so basically China's playing the bad guys. The NBA, I guess, is owned by China at this point because they're standing up to, they're doing all the BLM stuff, although they're going about it the wrong way. But they're not acknowledging really anything else other than BLM stuff. And this reporter, while he's not technically wrong for what he sent out, it's that posting that reply is a bit of a nickname for Richard move. It's like, you don't do something like that.
Yeah. And it also goes against what most businesses have, which is you represent the company on and off the clock.
Yeah. Adrian Maj definitely shouldn't have responded that way. But at the same time, the reporter, where's his name? I scrolled past it. John Hawley. Hawley.
You mean the senator?
Yeah, the senator.
Yeah, Senator Hawley.
Yeah, Senator Hawley. He definitely should not have reposted that of the reply. Like, that's not the right move to do.
No.
That's wrong. It just shows that these government officials that were supposed to trust us, that we're supposed to trust them, and they're just going and making fools of people when they shouldn't be. And they should be held to a higher standard, and they're clearly stooping down just to try and look better when that's actually making them look worse.
You're asking Congress to hold themselves to the same standards that they hold us to? You actually believe they'll do that?
You would think that's what would happen, but we gotta have everyone high up sort of corrupted and terrible and sexually harass people and social media harass people. I mean, honestly, I think Waj should sue him for defamation and character. I mean, he lost his job for 2 weeks. And he's actually what makes the NBA news happen. Man. He's the go-to. The NBA needs him more than he needs them.
Yeah, no, there's a reason they called his reports Waj bombs.
Yeah, I mean, and he's actually local. He did the the Bergen record, I think, or the Passaic record, whatever it was.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you know, he like back in I think the early 2000s, he was here in our local area doing stuff, and then he went on to Yahoo, and now he's doing the stuff for the NBA for ESPN.
Yeah. Well, still, as you said, ESPN moved swiftly and suspended him. In a tweet PR, they said, "quote This is completely unacceptable behavior, and we do not condone it. It is inexcusable for anyone working for ESPN to respond in the way Adrian did to Senator Hawley. We are addressing this directly with Adrian, and specifics of those conversations will remain internal." End quote. Separately, Waj tweeted out on July 10th, quote, "I was disrespectful and I made a regrettable mistake. I'm sorry in the way I handled myself, and I am reaching out immediately to Senator Hawley to apologize directly. I also need to apologize to my ESPN colleagues because I know my actions were unacceptable and should not reflect on any of them." End quote. So, as I said, even if it wasn't right in outing him, it's also correct that Waj is one of the faces of ESPN and represents the it's like say if the president was on for an inning during an All-Star game, and just a hypothetical, I'm not saying if he supports or doesn't support him, Joe Buck says F you and your policies on camera. That's unacceptable because you're representing your employer. There is always a difference when you are a very big public figure.
Yeah, Waj is a reporter. He's supposed to be unbiased and see both of these sides. He's not supposed to be the corporate side who's making all the deals with China. But hey, maybe his job is tied to China, and maybe that's why he's upset about that.
Yeah, well, the point is, even if he has his own opinions, he has to be careful because if he puts it out, he could be is it his opinion or is that ESPN's opinion?
Well, if you remember when we did Bottom of the Ninth at the WBCR radio station, I don't know how well you listened to the beginning or whatever, but like it always said the opinions expressed on this show are of the host and their guest and do not necessarily reflect WBCR, Siena College, or its board of trustees. Yeah. There needs to, you gotta be able to sort of classify what you're doing, and he just failed to do that. And especially when you're on the grand national stage at ESPN, you really have to be better than that. No. But also, being better than that, I think we talked about it a little bit last week, I think, with Deshaun Jackson, the anti-Semitic post.
Yes.
But also we had Nick Cannon, who just seems to like screwing up his life even more. Cheat on Mariah Carey. I mean, this dude had like everything set, and now he's just digging himself into a bigger hole. But the anti-Semitism, that is... Right, like what's happening with Deshaun Jackson is going to be nothing if a white athletic player said that, and it's insulting. Just a lot of double standards here, and to me it's sort of like what happened with the Astros. They're sort of slap on the wrist with what Deshaun Jackson's getting. But what really grinds my gears the most, though, is Mr. Myles Garrett of the Cleveland Browns. He signed a massive 5-year deal. I think it was $125 million, I think, something like that. He's the highest paid defender in NFL history. And let me pull up his stats here real quick. They are drafted number 1 overall out of Texas A&M in 2017. In 2017, he played 11 out of 16 games. So, a little bit more than half the season.
Yeah, decent amount.
2018, he played all 16 games. And then last year, he only played 10 games because apparently Steelers quarterback Mason Rudolph used a racial slur, according to him. So he decided to rip Mason Rudolph's helmet out and beat him over the head with his own helmet.
Yeah.
So he's played a total of 37 games out of a possible 48 games.
Yeah.
So that's not a lot of lost time, but that's only like 2.5 years out of a possible three, and he's already getting this 100 million plus deal with like 50 million guaranteed. Uh, the Cleveland Browns have a history in the last like 20 years of picking in the top. So they've had so many number one picks over the last decade alone, or even in the top three. And some of these players have been good for a year, 2 years, maybe even three, and then they completely crash and burn. And I mean, I don't watch too much Cleveland Browns football, but
Who does?
given a guy who's only really been on the field for 2.5 years worth of games, and who is suspended indefinitely, although he's now allowed to be back, and give him this massive contract for only proving himself for a year and a half. I mean, that's nothing. I mean, at that point, you might as offer Gio Urshela a $300 million contract for what he did just last year alone. That's completely ridiculous, and that wouldn't happen.
I mean, it's not out, in baseball. It's not out of the realm. We've seen in recent years several players take these huge 4, 5, 6 year extensions, and they haven't even played a game at the major league level.
Yeah, I mean it's nuts. I mean even more with the NFL. Ezekiel Elliott of the Cowboys, he's the running back there. He got a big, massive running back deal. And while he's by no means terrible, I just don't think he's the best running back and worth that money. Dak Prescott, I know we talked about him a lot, and he still didn't get his deal once that sort of time frame ended to sign the franchise tags and whatnot. So he didn't get his extension, but he definitely doesn't deserve that 50 million, 45 million that Mahomes is getting. I mean, I don't think that Mahomes really should be getting $50 million to play 1 year of football. That's astronomical. I mean, if you look in the NHL, I think the top guy in the NHL, Mitch Marner of the Toronto Maple Leafs, he's only making like 16 million for the year, which is just crazy of how much of a difference. I mean, some of these mediocre guys in the NFL and the NBA are making the 16 millions, but these are like some of the top players here, and it's unbalanced. I know some teams have the salary cap and whatnot. Like baseball has no salary cap. Well, it's a soft one, I guess.
Soft.
The luxury tax.
Yeah, but even football and basketball, they have salary caps, but because of all the money that pours into those franchises nowadays, they're able to afford all these contracts. We were talking about it last week with Patrick Mahomes and his ridiculous $500 million contract, the richest in any sports. But you go down the list of guys, Mike Trout, $426 million. Worth it? Yes.
Yeah.
If you're going to throw that much money at anyone, it's someone like Trout. But you have other names that don't perform or didn't perform to their level. The most notable glaring out of this is the poor Baltimore Orioles and Chris Davis with a C.
Oof.
And that $161 million contract that runs through 2022. I don't think he's been able to hit a ball on a tee for a single for the last 3 years. That's how much his batting eye is.
It's
dramatically.
But at least in like Chris Davis's case, he had that one or two good years, but he was at least like a veteran who you could see. Oh, okay, he could do this.
Yeah, but
some of these young guys are like, even Mahomes. I said last year that I wouldn't rank him higher than Russell Wilson as best quarterback because he's only played 2 full seasons. And he's already earned a $500 million contract. I mean, Myles Garrett's suspended. I mean, who knows if he's going to rip somebody else's helmet off or what he's going to do. I'm not saying that he would, but I mean, you're only played less than 5 years and you're getting that kind of contract. These contracts are out of control. If I was running a sports team, I don't know if I've told you, but I've definitely told my dad and I think Chris that I would set a bar and say, hey, do you want to win a championship every single year and get more money endorsements and be set for life? Or do you want to just try and make all that you can and not win any championships, not have your name remembered in anything? I would say take less money here. We'll build a team around everybody who wants to be here and win, and we'll dominate, and we'll be on the Wheaties boxes forever. And you do that by taking less money to play. Or you could just take $50 million a year and clog up the salary cap, and then what are you just left with? Your money? And you have no pride.
Well, some of this is determined by other things. The Chris Davis, that was off the heels of a 2014 season where he was dreadful after being a productive player the 2 years before.
Mm-hmm.
So the warning signs were there, but Peter Angelos, the owner of the Orioles, he saw that the window was open, and he wanted to capitalize on that window, even if it means having someone on the back end of their contract performing poorly. Just didn't think that would happen in the front end of the contract too. Similarly, the biggest poster child for what you said, just spending money everywhere and running up against a soft cap and not getting anywhere. The late Mike Ilitch of Detroit fame, that he wanted desperately the Tigers to win a World Series, and so he spent money like there was no tomorrow, and he got close. He reached the World Series, but at the same time, when he passed away, what was left of the Tigers franchise was several high-paying contracts and a barren farm system that couldn't support those overpriced, underperforming players, and Justin Verlander, because he was overpriced but not underperforming.
Well, at his tail end of the Tigers, he was starting to not be his Cy Young MVP form.
But I think
when he came over to the Astros, he switched that.
Yeah, I think enthusiasm was partly to blame.
I mean that's what happens when you're not winning games, when you're used to dominating everything with Triple Crown threat in your lineup. And
similarly, the Dodgers, another team that spends and spends, although they also have unlimited capacity for payroll. But the Red Sox also too. They spent and spent and spent, and all of a sudden the last 2 years they said, "Oh, we have no money." Cubs the same way. Yeah. We have no money. And then on the flip side of the spectrum, you have the Dolans of the Knicks and the Indians who don't spend to sustain a franchise that's winning. You have the Pirates and other small market teams that refuse to spend. So it's all driven by ownership level. That you have some owners who will say, "All right, we're going to sustain this franchise. We're going to make our choices." But we're going to also complement them with pieces that we develop. You have others that say, "Here's a blank check. Just sign these guys. We'll worry about what happens when we have to blow up the team." And then you have other guys who say, "I'm not going to spend on this franchise. If you develop, we'll spend." But they never develop, so they don't spend.
Now, unless if you have anything to add after this, I think a good ending thought would be. We already talked about the other week about if you could hit 400, if there's going to be like an asterisk against some of these stats in baseball with the 60-game season. But is there going to be an asterisk next to the Tampa Bay Rays if they win the World Series for having a team with a payroll of $20 million?
I don't think so, because the last few years they've done exceptional things on that shoestring budget, outright embarrassing some of the highest paid teams. I mean, look at it last year where they took the Houston Astros, who went to Game 7 of the World Series. They took the Astros to Game 5 in the Division Series, and had a decent shot of if something was wrong. If they hadn't run into Verlander and Cole, they could have very well knocked the Astros out of the postseason in the division series.
Yeah.
So they're basically they know how to they have what's the golden thing. They have an owner that says I'm not going to spend money, but I'm going to spend money on the smart baseball guys who know where to find people on the cheap.
And that's where I think the Rays could very well win the World Series this year because they're so used to doing this shoestring budget, and they don't have a lot of fans who normally come to the games anyway. So while they're still losing revenue from the games, it's not as much compared to these other teams. So I think if there's going to be a big flashy move that's going to be made, I think the Rays should pounce on that, take that and do it as they're like spending. It wouldn't be a $400 million contract spending sort of level of a splash, but I think they should take that leap, especially that it's a 60-game sprint, and they're one of only 3 teams in the last like 7 years or whatever to win. Their average like 90 wins a season.
Yeah, one of the most successful MLB franchises in the modern era, and no one cares.
So I think the Rays should make that trade deadline acquisition and maybe spend on like a good top arm if something comes available, just to give them an extra little bump in this sprint. So that's sort of my take on that. And as much as I want the Yankees to win, I think this would be a really good year for the Rays.
Yeah, but I just wish the Rays they had like maybe $50 million more they could spend. Imagine what they could do if they went out and got a top of the line arm and a top of the line hitter to complement the rest of that scrappy roster.
Oh yeah, and if Joe Madden was still their manager, ooh.
Yeah. Oh god. Ooh. Yeah. Well, Kevin Cash is doing quite a good job.
No, he's doing a great job. It's just I'm a Joe Madden guy, and I hope he turns around the Angels too, because I'm tired of seeing the best player in baseball not do anything.
Yeah, but we'll see. We'll probably go over our predictions for the Major League season next week, whenever that is. This interesting Thursday conversation because I was working and you had your hectic beginning.
Yeah, I was supposed to have Janine's birthday on Tuesday, so I was getting things ready for Monday, and news broke that one of my coworkers was near someone, and we all had to drop everything just in case, and it's a bit of a panic, but I'm glad we sort of waited a little bit. That way we got some of this breaking news, even though the Washington news was a little bit depressing.
Hey, get the depressing news. Get the depressing stuff out of the way. That way next week all we can talk about is opening day.
Hopefully it comes.
Hopefully.
So
I hope so, because that ties to my job.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. But until then, Joe, it has been a pleasure as always.
It has been a mighty fine pleasure.
Wash your hands, cover your face, all that stuff, and we will see you next week for baseball.
See you. This is a podcast.
Hear you. Touch you, taste you. Are we going into all 5 of the senses?
No, there's more than just 5 senses.
Yeah. Anyway, catch you next time.
See ya.